Hi, Alan. Thank you for inviting us into your home today. We're here going to do this home energy assessment. What kinds of things have been going on, and what do you expect to get out of this?
Well, first of all, I'm excited to have everybody here from Green Homes. As the viewers are going to soon find out, if they don't already know, Prudential California Realty has had a wonderful business relationship with Grupe and the Green Homes Solutions, and we're excited to experience what an energy audit actually feels like in my own home. So what I'm hoping to discover today is, one, what does the actual process look like? Because we're interested in seeing what the experience is for our clients. And my hope is to be able to share with my own sales associates and with our clients what the experience is like. Our home is a fairly new home. It was when it would have been built. It's 5 years old at this point in time. So it's not the ideal home in some of the standpoint that it's one of the older homes that would have some obvious challenges. But I think we may be surprised to discover where there are some issues in terms of efficiency in this home.
What we try to do is first is kind of get a feel for the house. We come out, walk the exterior. We're looking for issues as far as the windows, seeing if there's shade screens, looking for ventilation of the attic, looking for proper drainage around the perimeter of the house, and also taking the information off of the cooling equipment, which would be the condenser side of your HVAC system. And also in this Alan's residence, he also has a pool, so we're going to be looking at pool equipment also to see if there's any areas where we can improve on his energy efficiency at that location.
What exactly in the pool do you look for?
The main thing in the pool is we're looking at the pumps. A lot of times we find there's multiple pumps, and they're single speed pumps which use a lot of energy. And one of our recommendations is putting a variable speed pump in, which lowers the usage, and when the actual pump does come on, it's going at working at a lower speed, and since you're losing yet less energy. Of all houses that we have replaced pool pumps on and to a variable speed, they have noticed tremendous reduction.
Well, just
in the
as I suspected, it is not a variable speed. Usually the variable speed, you can tell immediately just because of the control panel. This appears that it's probably a 2-speed, which is somewhat energy efficient, but not as efficient as a variable speed pump.
Isn't that interesting? Based on the age of this home, here we have a newer home. I think a lot of people think that if they have a newer home that they have the energy efficient pool pumps.
Exactly. So there is some room for improvement here.
Awesome. Okay.
As we're here, I can point out a few other things. As I'm walking around the house, I'm looking for ventilation of the attic. We always want to make sure we have good ventilation in our attics. Here we have a gable vent up above, and I've already noticed there are E-vents around the perimeter also, so this house does appear to be properly ventilated in the attic. A couple things we're doing here is, one, we're looking to see what utilities are being used at this residence. At this particular residence, they have gas being supplied by PG&E, and then the electric is through MID, and that we need to have that information so when we put all our information into our Energy Pro calculation for the residents, we need to know what the utilities are. Also, I'm looking at the main panel here, and more for safety than anything, to make sure that there are not any unprotected openings, just for safety. That way a child or someone doesn't come in and put their fingers in there and get electrocuted.
Wow, well that doesn't have anything to do with energy efficiency, does it?
Not at all, not at all. But we do kind of keep our eyes open, looking for safety concerns also. We are a BPI, Building Performance Institute contractor. So we do have certain things that we do for the safety aspect. As we'll go in, and you may observe Nick later doing some tests, we're looking for high CO levels, gas leaks, that type of thing for safety. Has nothing to do with energy, more for safety.
So CO, what's CO? What does that stand for?
It's carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide.
Byproducts of combustion, which is very hazardous. So that's one thing we take very seriously, checking all appliances, even the cooktops, ovens. If they're gas appliances, we check the CO levels on them, along with your water heater and your furnace.
Real estate agents know about carbon monoxide. Those have to be
sure
put.
They do now. They need to have those monitors in every home.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Okay. And because those levels, if they're high, can they be fatal?
Yes, they can. Yes,
Okay.
they can. And one thing, as we're here at the meter and talking about CO, since we work with PG&E, our energy upgrade program, if we come across a house that has high CO or a gas leak, we immediately call PG&E, and they send out what they call a GSR, which is a gas service representative, and they'll come out and take care of the situation.
Okay. Have you found any like that?
Oh, since we started this program, I've been surprised how many incidences we do find and have to call them out. It's probably 50% of the time we need to call them out for a gas leak or high CO
There,
levels.
the drains?
I'm not looking for frogs. I'm actually pointing out here that we have an area drain. And what this is telling me that this house is the grading on it is done properly to what I see so far. We have an area drain, so it's collecting all the surface water and taking it out to the street. As you come over here, this house has gutters on the roof, and which comes down to a downspout.
Let's come over here. Let's take a look at this downspout here.
And you can see that it is also connected to the closed drainage system. So this connection here goes to an area drain which goes out to the street, which is good because we always want to make sure we're getting the water away from the house. We don't want any water up against the house. So then what happens in that case, then moisture starts to wick into the concrete and could create issues on the interior of the house.
Backyard, and I noticed that the rear of the house is facing west. So the sun's setting in the west. I would expect these rooms with all these windows back here, and you can see there's all these windows back here on the back of the house. Do they get warm in the afternoon, and is there anything that you do to combat that heat?
Well, absolutely. First of all, of course, we get total sun exposure all afternoon, and during the summer, you can imagine how hot that gets on the house. So a couple things you'll notice is, one, this entire side of the house is heavily blind, and we keep the blinds closed, most of the time just to, keep that heat coming into the house. The only room in the house that doesn't have blinds is our sliding glass door that comes off of our kitchen. And so it doesn't have any blinds, and because it's also west facing, we will often take our pool umbrella, hoist it over here on the patio just to add that additional level of shade before it, off the back of the house.
Great, so shading really helps, doesn't
It
it?
makes a significant difference.
John, what do you have to say about these windows?
Well, looking at the windows and from the age that this house was built, and also looking at the windows themselves, they appear they have low E glass on them, which what that low E actually does, it reflects the solar heat gain from the window back out. So that way it's not getting transferred into the house. So in this case, Alan, does have some defense there. And plus, with his shades that he has on the interior, really blocks out the sun, which helps.
What if this house was built 15 years ago? What would you expect?
Well, if it was an older home, depending on what type of windows they had. Say if they had just regular metal frame, single pane windows, I would recommend them to get them changed out and go to a dual pane vinyl and with a low E film installed in them. Also, say if they, some customers, they have the old, I shouldn't say old, but later double pane metal frame windows, they don't really see it being really effective to changing them out to a vinyl window. In those cases, they don't have the low E. Those cases we can go in and install a low E film on the window itself, which would do the same thing as reflect that solar heat gain off the window.
Many times we talk to homeowners that do have the metal dual pane windows, and they're under the assumption that they have dual pane windows. So that must be that they're energy efficient.
Right.
So the difference is really today with our vinyl windows, the low E is just a much better solution.
Yeah, the frame itself is, the thermal properties of the frame itself is better, and then of course the glass with the low E within the two panes is a great benefit.
Is a great benefit. Okay, great. Thanks, John.
What we're doing right now is actually conducting what we call a spillage test. And what we're looking for is see if exhaust gases from the water heater when fired are actually backdrafting into the home. What we just did, we actually put the house in what we call worst case conditions. And what that means is we're trying to pressurize the house as much as possible to see if we can make this water heater backdraft. And we do that by exhaust fans, hood vents, and certain door positions when the air conditioner's on. And in this case, because this garage is so tight, we were actually able to make this water heater backdraft. And that's an issue for, a couple of reasons. For one thing, we're allowing exhaust gases into the living space, which in this garage, which obviously they spend a lot of time in here, and most notably carbon monoxide issues. And so what we're doing right now is I actually shut all the exhaust fans off, I turn the air conditioner off, and we're retesting it under natural conditions. And in this case, under natural conditions, we have absolutely no spillage. So that's a plus. And so besides our spillage test, we also do carbon monoxide tests. And we check to see carbon monoxide levels actually in the flue of the water heater. And we're also going to take a draft test to see that if the water heater is drafting properly and the exhaust fumes are actually getting outside the building shell. And so, in this case scenario, I've been testing it for a while. We come back with great flying colors, no CO, and we have wonderful draft issues.
So this right here is what tells you the levels.
Yes, this is a combustion analyzer, and it tells us the oxygen levels down here, as well as the CO levels. As you can see, 0, and that's what we want to see. And with a newer water heater, that's what we expect.
Okay.
A couple other tests that we do, we check the blue flame percentage of the burner, just to see, that's obvious, kind of logical sign to see if it is burning function. Well, we look for 80%. In this case, he was a little under that, 70%. There could be some dirt on the thermocouple or something, it might want to be checked out and cleaned.
What would that do to the water heater if you have the blue flame less than what it should be?
It's making the water heater actually work harder to obviously heat up the water because the flame isn't as strong. It's pulling for more gas. And again, that could cause carbon monoxide issues from insufficient burning, not complete combustion basically. And a couple other visual inspections, we see that its seismic trapped extremely well. We have a good flue rise, which is good, again, for exhausting the fumes out. We have insulation on the water lines, and we have a wonderful plumbing job on a TPR line, and that doesn't happen very often. I'd have to say 80% of our homes, our TPR line, are plumbed properly. And what this does, it's a temperature pressure release valve, so if this ever overheated or had issues, all the hot water would come out of here and release out of this valve outside the building shell. Too often we see with an improper rise or threaded in that someone could actually cap on the end. And if you cap that line, the water heater obviously will just blow up everywhere else it can. So in this case scenario, the water heater is in great condition. We can fix the original spillage issue under worst case conditions by possibly adding some vents in here to allow combustion air and makeup air for that to get the exhaust out properly.
So this garage needs airflow.
It does. It needs to breathe a little bit. It's so tightly controlled. Good door shoes on here, a tight garage door. If we just put one upper vent in here, we'd be great.
Okay, so we look at vents in the garage?
We do. We need proper ventilation, like I said, just so this water heater has enough air to breathe and actually properly combust.
Awesome. We have home inspections. I know real estate agents, when someone is buying a home, they'll order a home inspection, and home inspectors are great. We want a home inspection on every house that, that an agent sells. But in this instance, what I'm seeing is maybe our level of expertise at Green Home Solutions is a little bit different than what the home inspector does.
It is. I think we're both obviously very important when it comes to home inspections. While they go into more structural issues, we actually take a building science perspective, which kind of sets above that most people just can't compete with that in our level of training. And we're continuing basically our combustion safety tests. And in this case, one of our big driving forces, like we talked about before, is carbon monoxide levels. And a common culprit that we see in homes is basically an improper mixture of air and gas on burners and ovens, which cause high COs. And obviously kitchens are usually right at the heart of the home. And so high CO levels in the kitchen could be very alarming for some people. So what we do, the same combustion meter that we used before, we like to check 12 inches above the flame and see if the stoves are producing CO or not. We like to see basically under 22 to 26 parts per million on stoves. And again in this house, we're coming out great, a new burner, we're under 0. But all too often we see elevated CO levels that need to be addressed right away.
And that can be so dangerous in a stove. People wouldn't even know that they have high carbon monoxide levels. They're using their gas stove and it could be dangerous for them.
And we see problems, especially in the winter, when the house is closed up. Obviously, people are at home more, do more cooking, and that's where these tests really come into play.
It's awesome.
And so, continuing on this, we also check every available gas appliance and gas line to see if there's gas leaks in it.
I'm hearing something ticking over here, or making a strange
and it's not a
noise.
metronome. We're not getting the band out. This is actually what we call a gas sniffer. Not a very technical name, but a very useful tool nonetheless. And what we do is we go around every accessible gas valve and gas connection and check it for gas
in this
leaks.
dark place called the attic that really is Nick. I've got the camera on, even though you can't see him. And this is a place where most people never want to go, but here we are. So Nick, tell us, what are you doing up here?
Well, this is a place that obviously most people don't normally want to spend their time, but we're up here to continue our diagnostic tests on our HVAC equipment. We've already done our tests in heat mode, which we check for CO levels, of course, to make sure no CO is actually entering the homes through the air handler and the supply vents. And we also did what we call a temperature rise, which basically we check the temperature rise from the return air to the supplied air to see that it's under the manufacturer's specifications. And again, this passed with flying colors. We also do diagnostic tests under the cooling mode with the AC running, and what we do is we check to see the amount of watts that the air handler is actually pulling, which allows us to tell how hard the machine's working. And obviously if the machine has to work harder to supply air, it's going to have a lower life expectancy, which we're trying to avoid. And so a lot of things come into detail up here. We do a lot of visual inspections. Of course, we're going to check all the ductwork to make sure the duct runs are nice and low, properly sealed and not elevated. We're going to check insulation levels to see if there's high and low spots and to see if there's actually a proper insulation barrier up here. We're going to check exhaust fans to see if they're properly vented to the exterior, and hood vents as well, because I can't tell you how many times we go up in the attics and the exhaust hood over our stove is actually not ducted all the way to the outside, and there's about an inch of grease laying on the insulation.
Oh, wow. And people wouldn't even know that that exhaust isn't going to the outside.
Exactly, and that's why we're here. We dig a little bit deeper and go a little bit farther than your normal home inspection. I'll cover every inch of this attic, take wonderful pictures, and we'll give people a wonderful snapshot of their home.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, let's look over here at this insulation. I'm looking at it right here. And tell me a little bit about this over here. What are we seeing? That it's good levels? Is it uneven?
Although not horrible, it's definitely not up to today's standards. We like to see at least an R38 in the attic right now. An R38 is approximately 15 to 18 inches of loose fill fiberglass. And although this is loose fill fiberglass, we're coming up a little bit short on our depths. And as you can see, there appears to be trails where work has to be formed in here. And although we might have 18 inches over here, we're down to 9 inches right here. And that 9 inches basically degrades the whole attic. And so you don't have a complete insulation level across the whole thing. So it'll be wonderful when we come back down with the infrared camera later on, we'll look at specific areas like this to see the amount of heat actually conducting through this.
Oh, awesome. Okay, well, I can't wait for that. And I'm going to let you go ahead and continue your testing up here, because I'm not exactly real comfortable.
What we have here is what we call a blower door. And we use this large fan to depressurize the house. And with the volume in the house, we're able to calculate how leaky the house is to certain standards. And also, what we have done is, since it's summer, we ran the AC, and we try to achieve at least a 20-degree temperature split from the inside to outside. That way, when we depressurize the house, we're able to go around with the infrared camera, and we're able to isolate air leakage areas.
This is the infrared camera, and what this does, it shows us the temperature differences. Now that Nick had just told you that we had depressurized the house, and since it's hot out, we've cooled the house down. So now we're sucking that hot air in, and it really shows us where there's air leakage and also poor insulation. In this instance, I'm going to show you right here. This is at the fire door to the garage, and if you can see that IR camera there, you see the top of the door where you get that red and then it goes to yellow. The red is the hottest point, and what's happening there's air infiltration coming through the top of the door and also through the casing. So the frame, actual rough frame, you're getting air infiltrating through that. So that's the simple fix there, is probably replacing the weather stripping and then putting a bead of caulk on top of that casing, and that would help seal that up. Show you an example how accurate this camera is. As you can see on that wall now, with my IR camera, it doesn't pick anything up. I'm going to put my hand on this wall for a couple seconds. Now I pull back, it has picked up my heat from my hand in just those couple seconds. So Nick, what's this space age contraption?
So what we're looking at now is actually what we call a duct blaster. And so what this does, we're able to pressurize the ducts after sealing off all supplies, and with the size of our HVAC system, we could actually give a leakage number. Well, this crazy large contraption is what we call a bolometer, aka a flow hood. And this allows us to actually measure the amount of air coming out of each register in terms of CFM, or cubic feet per minute, which is pretty much an industry standard. And why this is important is because everyone knows certain spots in their house that has more air or less air. And with this, we're actually able to pinpoint the amount of air coming in. And if we get a little bit closer, it actually gives us a reading in CFM right here. As you can see, it's going up and up. And what we do is we take these numbers, and through an actually sophisticated software program, we're able to calculate with the wall exposure, the amount of windows in a room, and the amount of air being supplied, how much air should actually go to this register. And so basically by taking these measurements, we can see if we're close to that, high or low, and what we need to improve on, if we need to get more or less air to each room.